Dear students, today our topic is injuries of bone. Injuries means harm done to persons or an animal's body, especially in an accident, is called injuries of connected with bones, one of the hard parts inside the body of a person or animal that are covered with muscle, skin, etc. is called bones. Bone injury is a serious injury and it is very painful. Bone injury means one of the hard parts inside the body of a person or animals that are covered with muscles, skin, etc. is a serious injuries is and serious injury is which is sustained by a person in an accident is called serious injury, and it is very painful, very mean extremely in a high degree painful, that causes pain or hurts if bone injury is not handled properly. Bone injury causes of bone fractures include trauma, overuse, and diseases that weaken bones is called bone injury. Handled to deal with or to control something is called handled properly means correctly. It may lead to permanent disabilities, thus to be handled by an expert doctor. It may lead. There is no doubt that stress can lead to physical fitness. Permanent, lasting for a long time or forever, that will not change. That is called permanent. Disability, the state of being unable to use a part of your body properly, usually because of injury, is called disability. Thus, like this, handled by to deal with or to control something. Why an expert doctor means a specialist physician is a doctor who has completed advanced education and training in specific field of medicine is called expert doctor. The first aid is to immobilize the part and to stop bleeding by ice therapy. The first aid means medical help that you give to somebody who is injured or hurt or ill before the doctor arrives is called first aid. Immobilize part means to prevent somebody from moving his body limbs. Bleeding by an to stop bleeding by an ice therapy. Stop to finish moving bleeding, to lose blood from the vascular system either internally into the body or break in the skin is called bleeding. Ice therapy. Ice therapy may also be used in intermittently to prevent swelling and to reduce muscular or joint pain is called ice therapy. In this way, further damage can be avoided. In this way means used for desired result. Further, more to a greater degree, damage, harm or injury caused when something is broken or spoiled can be avoided, can mean caused when something happen, avoided, keep away. Types means kinds, categories. Bone injury can be classified as a dislocation or fracture. Bone injury can be classified means arranged into classes. Dislocation. A dislocation is an injury to a joint a place where two or more bones come together, in which the ends of your bones are forced from their normal positions, is called dislocation. Fracture. A break in a bone is called fracture. It is again of various types, like simple and complicated. Various means many kinds. Simple, not difficult or complicated. Complicated means difficult. First one, dislocations. Dislocations. A dislocation is an injury to a joint, a place where two or more bones come together, in which the ends of your bones are forced from their normal positions, is called dislocations. The term means the word of dislocation usually refers to the movement out of normal position of the bones of a joint. Usually refer mean normally happen, movement, an act of moving out of normal position away from ordinary place. Bones of joint. Joints are the area where two or more bones meet together, is called bones of a joint. When bones become dislocated, they do not meet properly at the joint. When, at what time? Bones, one of the hard parts inside the body of a person, come into existence. Dislocated means change their positions. They do not meet properly at the joint. Means the bone doesn't correctly, they do not join as a natural position. Fracture is the term used to indicate that a bone is broken or cracked. Fracture means a break in a bone. Term means a word used to indicate, implied to show something is exist. Bone is broken means requires a medical diagnosis, is called. A bone is broken. Cracked means to break. Fracture may occur by some external pressures, means a break of bone take place. Occur means to happen, some external force, certain amount outside force are applied. Fracture may be simple or complicated. Fractures mean a break in a bone may be ordinary or difficult. There are many types of fractures. Many means large number of. Types means kinds of fracture. Fracture means a crack or break in the bone. Types, kinds, categories. Fracture has various types. Various means number of types. Various types of fractures are as listed below. Means number of fractures are marked as under. Number 1 is the simple fracture. Simple fracture means when the overlying skin is not broken and bone is not exposed to the air, is called simple fracture. A fracture of bone only means a break of bone is only just one of the hard parts inside the body of a person, without damage to the surrounding tissues. Damage means harm surroundings around. Breaking of the skin is called simple fracture. Tissues, the mass of cells that form the bodies of human, animals and plants. Breaking of the skin. When a wound is a break in the skin, wounds or injuries that break the skins If a tear or lacerations has opened up on the surface of the body is called breaking of the skin, is called simple fracture. Open or compound fractures. Open fracture is associated, or compound fracture is a fracture in which there is open wound or break in the skin near the site of the broken bone is called open or compound fracture. An open fracture, also called a compound fracture, means the another name of open fracture is compound fracture, is a fracture in which there is an open wound or break in the skin near the site of the broken bone is called open or compound fractures. Open bound. An open bound is an injury involving an external or internal break in body tissues, usually involving the skin, near the site broken bone, not far away from the happening of fracture. Comminuted fractures. Comminuted fracture, the bone is broken into more than two pieces, is called comminuted fractures when there is an associated injury to some important internal structures such as brain, spinal cord, nerve, lungs and liver, or when a fracture at a joint is associated with dislocation is called comminuted fractures. When there is a associated injuries, means at what time appear associated injury to make connection with harm done to body, some important having a great value internal structures, the internal structures or the inner pieces and parts that keep organism alive, help them grow and help them reproduce is called internal structures, such as brain, the part of your body inside your head that controls your thoughts, feelings and movements is called brain. Spinal cord, the spinal cord and membranes are surrounded by the backbones. The spinal cord and the brain make up central nervous systems is called spinal cord. Nerve, the long thin threads in your body carrying feeling is called nerve. Lungs, the two organs of your body that are inside your chest and are used for breathing is called lungs. And liver, the part of your body that cleans your blood is called liver. Or when a fracture at a joint is associated with a dislocation is called comminuted fractures. When a fracture at a joint is associated, means connected with dislocation, a place where two more bones comes together, that fracture is called comminuted fracture. Complicated fractures means structures surrounding the fracture are injured. They may be damage to the veins, arteries is called complicated fractures. Structures surrounding the fracture are injured. Surroundings means around the fractures or injured, a break of bone or damage. There may be damage to the bones. There may be means something that already exists. Fracture or injuries. Fracture that extended into a joints at the ends of the bone in usually damage the cartilage joint. There may be a damage to the veins, arteries or nerves. Veins, Veins, if these valves are weak or damaged, blood can flow backward and pool in the vein is called veins. Arteries, one of the tubes which take blood from heart to other parts of the body is called arteries or nerves. The long thin threads in your body carrying feelings is called nerves, and there may also be injury to the lining of the bone is called complicated fractures. Structures surrounding by the fracture or injured, there may be a damage to veins or nerves is called injury to the lining of the bone. That is called a complicated fracture. Impacted fractures. Impacted is a complete fracture in which the fracture line is indistinct. And impacted fractures occurs when the broken ends of the bone are jammed together by the force of the injury. Occurs means happen, take place. Broken ends of the bone. A comminuted fracture in which the broken ends of bone are shattered into many pieces is called broken ends of the bone, or jammed together mean to make something unable to move or work is called jammed together by the force of injury means blunt force. Trauma is an injury that is caused by an object striking or hitting the body is called force of injury. The broken ends of the bone are shattered into many pieces is called impacted fractures. Shattered means very shocked and upset. Into many pieces means to separate a large structure into pieces. That is called a impacted fracture. Green stick fracture. This type of fracture occur most often during infancy and childhood when bones are very soft is called green stick fracture. It occurs in the children. The bone may be cracked and bent without breaking completely across is called green stick fractures. Bone, the hard part of your body, may be cracked means even though break, bent without breaking, not straight and showing separate, completely, fully or totally across from one sides of something. That is called a green stick fracture. Depressed fractures. Depressed fractures means skull fracture may occur with head injury is called depressed fracture. A depressed skull fracture is a type of fracture resulting from blunt force trauma such as getting struck with the rock or getting kicked in the road is called depressed fracture. A depressed skull fracture means skull fracture is a break of bones surrounding the brain is called skull fracture. Resulting means to happens from a blunt force trauma. Injuries resulting from an impact with dull firm surface or object is called blunt force trauma. Getting to receive, such as getting struck means to receive, struck to hit. Rock, the hard solid material that forms part of the surface of the earth is called rock. Kicked means to hit. In the road means a hard surface in which cars, buses, etc. can drive along is called road. that is called a depressed fractures. Spiral fractures are also known as a torsion fractures is a type of complete fractures. A spiral fracture is a bone fracture occurring when rotating force is applied along the axis of a bone is called spiral fractures. Spiral fractures are also known as a torsions fractures is a type of complete fractures. Is a bone fracture. Causes of a bone fracture include trauma, overuse, and diseases that weakens the bones is called bone fractures. Occurring means happening when a rotating force. A torque is a force applied to a point on an object about the axis of rotations is called rotating force. Is applied means is used along with the axis of bones. The axis bones serves as the axle about which in Atlas term is called spiral fractures. Multiple fractures, two or more fractures either in the same bone or in different bones what occurring at the same time is called multiple fractures. Multiple fractures means the bone is broken from more than one place is called multiple fractures. Bone hard parts inside the body of a person that are covered with muscles and skin extra is called bone is broken from more than one place means the bone is damaged more than one place mean greater in size positions that is called a multiple fractures. Stress fractures. A fracture of a bone caused by a repeated mechanical stress is called stress fracture. A stress fracture is an overuse injury. Stress fractures means a fracture of a bone caused by repeated mechanical stress is called stress fracture. Is an overuse injury mean repetitive strain injuries impacts muscles, nerves, ligaments and tendons is called overuse of injuries. It occurs means it takes place, it happens when muscles become fatigued and are unable to absorb added shock. Begin fatigued, cause to feel exhausted, unable, cannot able to absorb means to take in and hold something or to take something into mind and understand it. Absorb. An added shock. Added means to put something together. Shock is a life threatening condition that occurs when the body is not getting enough blood flow is called shock. Eventually means in the end or in the final. The fatigue muscles transfer the overload of stress to the bone, causing a tiny crack called a stress fracture. The fatigued muscles means to feel exhausted by the muscles, the parts inside your body that you can make tight or relax in order to produce movement is called muscles. Transfer, to move the overload of stress. Overload, to give somebody too much of something, that is called a overload. Stress, you feel to unable to cope as a result of pressure that are unmanageable is called stress. To the bone means the hard parts inside the body of a person that are covered with muscle, skin extra is called bone. Causing, happening A tiny crack means a very small crack means break. That is called a stress fracture. Thanks and have a nice day.